Hello and welcome to another episode of the Renewable Energy Movement powered by Kigyo. Today's guest is Carlo Toic. Carlo is COO and one of the founding partners of Solar, who are a new independent platform that we'll talk about in a minute. Focus on the European solar business. How was that for an introduction, Carlo?
So thank you very much for having me. I'm really glad to be part of this podcast, and I'm looking forward to hear your questions.
Great stuff. Thank you. Nice to have you. Like ever, let's start at the very beginning. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got into the renewable industry in the first place.
Sure. So, being a 52-year young boy, my experience starts in real estate in the beginning of the millennium, and basically our scope in renewables is connected to the real estate part of renewables, because Solar Global is not an energy producer and we're not a developer. We are a real estate investor that operates in the renewables industry. So my beginning started at the beginning of the millennium when I was quite younger, and I started as a real estate broker. But then eventually I moved to Ireland in 2011. And this is when I got involved in a different industry, which is the telecommunication industry, but with a similar asset class, which is land covered by infrastructure. And so I spent 10 years in telecommunications, 4 years working on OPEX savings for mobile network operators, meaning we were trying to find savings on their network. And then the other years working for sell-side aggregators, meaning investment funds that were buying land plots covered by infrastructure, which means sell sites. So this is how I got involved in a specific asset class. Then fast forward, Mark and I at the beginning of 2022 and 23, we started talking about where would our business model provide more value, and this is how we actually started looking close to renewables.
Got you. So you were, the words critical infrastructure get used quite a lot these days when we're talking about data centers or renewable projects. You were essentially working within the real estate world of a part of critical infrastructure, right? Or be in the telecommunications industry.
That's correct. Actually, critical infrastructure is the right term.
Yeah.
Meaning we are creating a new asset class. The asset class of critical infrastructure ground sites covered by renewables doesn't exist yet, and we are aiming to create to aggregate a portfolio of these assets that will mitigate the termination risk, the mortality risk, and behave like a bond, basically.
Yeah. Understood. And you mentioned you set up the company in Ireland. Is that right?
So that is correct. So I moved to Ireland in 2011 and spent 13 years in Dublin. I used to live in Dublin, and this is where we set up our operation company, which is Solar Global Infrastructure Limited. And it's still our operation company. So our company is still based in Ireland. But we are a post-pandemic company, which means we don't need an office. This is the way we operate. I have my people boots on the ground in every country that we operate. Currently, that's Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, Germany, and Poland. And I see my staff every day in this way. So I live in their computer and they live in my computer.
Yeah. And you have local people on the ground in all of those countries?
Absolutely. Yes, that is correct.
Right. It's something that I come across quite a lot, in recruiting. It's I've got quite a wide range of experience with recruiting internationally. But this industry, the strength of local language and local knowledge takes you a long way.
No, yeah, absolutely. And look, if I can't, even if I understand a few words of Greek, I can tell you I cannot read Greek. So I need a Greek guy. But then, you would say the same for Polish. I am Croatian. I do understand some Polish, but I need a Polish guy to actually interpret leases, to work with local legal advisors, technical advisors. And we do believe that our guys need to interact with the main actors in the industry, which is developers and IPPs.
Yeah.
So we created this origination platform where we have our employees reaching out to the actors in the industry.
Yeah. So just tell me a little bit about how it actually came about then. Let's go back to kind of, 2023. You spot this gap in the market. Is it for a slightly different approach or?
So yes, so Mark actually approached me and then we started brainstorming this asset class because in renewables and especially in utility scale solar, all investors and IPPs like to lease the land for a very long period of time. And when we say a very long period of time, we're talking 30-year leases plus an extension of 10 or 20 years. So very, very long periods. And they succeed in approximately 80% of the cases, meaning 80% of the times, the IPP will have a lease in place. But there is a 20% of the cases where the land is just for sale. It's not to be leased. I mean, if I'm an 80-year-old guy and you propose to me a 30-year-old lease, well, it's not really going to do any good for me. So I would prefer to sell my land. Or if the owner of the land is a company, companies usually don't lease land. You can buy it. And there are many, many variants to this rule. So there is 20% of the cases where the land is just for sale. And for the IPP, it's never a financial issue. Meaning it's never is not having the funds to buy the land that will stop them. But it's more on the balance sheet level. So when you complete your investment and you turn on your solar plant, on your balance sheet, you will have your renewable asset and you will have your real estate asset. They just don't live well together. The renewable asset is 100% depreciable. It's 100% liquid, which means if in 5 to 7 years I want to sell my solar plant, there is a very vibrant second-hand market. Land, on the other side, firstly, most jurisdiction is a non-depreciable asset. So my tax shield doesn't really work well. Then land is not liquid, meaning when I invest 2-3 million in 50 hectares or 70 hectares, and we'll talk about the value as well, and I need my equity back, I need to find somebody that is okay buying a piece of land that's burdened by a 30-year-old lease. It's a very restricted market. So basically, this investment is illiquid. And thirdly, why is my OPEX, which is rent, suddenly in my CAPEX? So you see that there are several things that are just not working well. The investment in the land will not improve my IRR, so my solar investment IRR. And what I anticipated earlier, even if I spend 3 million on a piece of land, which means I paid 50 or 60,000 euro a hectare or 100,000 euro, this doesn't mean that that's my book value. Yeah. And if I have a bank evaluating a piece of land, usually it's going to be evaluated with its residual value, which is agricultural.
Yeah. So you are there to support IPPs to develop on patches of land that is essentially for sale as opposed to for lease, right?
Correct. So I like to say that we are in the business of optimizing balance sheets, which means the IPP's return on capital employed is higher if they continue employing capital in developing energy producing assets. The real estate asset has a long ROI trajectory, while the energy producing asset has a shorter one, and there is a higher return. So mixing the two doesn't really have any sense. In my 10 years experience in telecommunications, I have seen the consolidations of MNOs, mobile network operators, and I can tell you that today, when you see the cell sites, the MNO owns just the technology on the mast. The tower is probably owned by a tower company, and the land is probably owned by a land aggregator. So I do expect the same thing happening in renewables. Renewables are not new as an industry, but actually the bulk of renewables started in 2019. So while we do have renewable plants since 2010, 2009, 2011, the bulk of the renewables deployment started from 2019. So it's still a very early stage where issues of dragging on balance sheets real estate is not yet showing, but I do expect it to show its challenges very, very soon.
And then you're going back, you mentioned you've got people on the ground in all of your markets. A couple of questions. Firstly, how do you identify the markets? And secondly, what's the focus? What's the purpose of those people on the ground?
Sure. So, well, identifying the market is easy. I mean, we live in the EU, so my market is the EU. Oh. Investors like euros, investors like US dollars, British pounds. So I mean, that these are our markets. We also like the rule of law. So we have projects in the US, we have projects in Canada, Mexico, Chile, all Europe. Now, there are some countries that I would kind of be a little bit more reserved, but in general, we managed to convince our investors even to invest in zlotys. Hence, we have Poland. Poland being the most Western, Eastern European country in country rating, in the way of doing business. So this is where we are present. Then we have the EU renewables targets that need to be met until 2030. So there's a high decarbonization program going on in all these countries, where you would have Portugal with the least decarbonization targets because they already have a lot of renewables and they have a lot of offshore. But then you would have on the other side Poland with high decarbonization targets and an expected deployment of renewables in general.
And your people on the ground, are they negotiating directly with landowners, or are they working with the IPPs? Or
no, we don't. So we are not originators of land. We don't do that because our platform is a B2B platform, which means we speak to developers and we speak to IPPs. We can help in 3 different stages of the lifespan of the solar plant. So the first one is the pre-RTB stage. In this pre-RTB stage, usually the developer has signed a preliminary purchase agreement with a landowner with condition precedent. There are CPs that need to be met because rarely somebody is buying speculatively. Taking development risk is very heavy, meaning I will only buy when the solar plant is fully authorized, but I can commit to buy quite early, meaning I will vet my developer's project, and if my developer has a project and not a pie in the sky, I can commit quite early with a commercial agreement to buying that land when the CPs are met, and I attach to this commercial agreement the lease. So this is the lease, this is the language, this is the value. Why is this good for the developer? It's much easier to find a client that will buy my project if I have a lease than trying to find a client with deeper pockets. So, and they are okay with buying the land. I can tell you also that the clients with deeper pockets that are buying the land then come back to me with a sale and lease back, which is something that I'm going to mention second. So finish this first pre-RTB stage. We have the second stage, which is the lifespan of the solar plant. And here, there are 2 ways we can help. One, when the landowner decides, and this is going to happen in the following years, let's say a German or a Polish landowner or an Italian landowner that is already receiving rent on an operating plant, decides that he wants to dispose of this asset. Who is he going to call? You're not going to call your real estate agent and telling me, hey, I want to sell my piece of land, because there are no buyers for that. I am the only buyer that will evaluate that asset based on its yield. Now, the IPP has usually they have a preemption clause. So the landowner needs to go to the IPP saying, I'm selling the land. But the SPV is not funded to buy that land. And the IPP should be interested in having me as an institutional investor on the other side, because when they will want to repower, year 20, year 25, you want to repower and you want to extend the lease. Well, guess what? I want to extend the lease as well, because my investment makes more sense this way. So this is the midlife step. And then, as I said earlier, we have the program of a sale and lease back, where we are talking to IPPs and we have entire pipelines of already operating plants where we just buy them in bulk, release some equity for the IPP, lower their debt exposure, and basically optimize their balance sheet.
Yeah. Interesting. And you going back a little bit to the setup of the company. You mentioned you're a post-COVID company,
Yes.
where you work a lot, via Teams or screens. How do you find that? How do you find building a team culturally that way?
So, first of all, Mark is sitting in London. I used to sit in Dublin. And when we started this company, it was just the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And then we started adding bodies to the company. The first question when we early to 2023, when we started discussing this project was, okay, where are we going to be based? Now, I guess as you and as everyone, we don't like throwing money out of the window. Me having an office in Dublin and trying to find a Greek guy in Dublin that will eventually travel 3 times or 4 times per year to Greece doesn't have any sense.
No.
So when I said post-COVID is when COVID hit, we all retooled by working online remotely, all of us. So maybe before COVID, there were some reserves of having remote teams. I need to see you. I need to breathe on your neck in order to be sure that you're doing your job. Well, we were very successful, and I was very successful with teams remotely. We have a really good CRM, so I can actually see what you do. But in general, look, and I mean, you're in recruitment. So what I'm going to say, you actually know that it's about the profile of the people that you're hiring.
Yeah, sure.
And the profile needs to be right. So when I'm hiring my resources, I'm looking for some profile traits, which is one, are you a self-starter? Because if you're a self-starter, you don't need to come to the office. And secondly, are you comfortable in working on your own remotely? And look, there are some people that need to commute. They need to have coffee on Monday and talk about the Sunday game in the office. There is another breed of people. I am that second, the latter one, which I don't need to commute. I'm happy to work remotely. And, I'm happy to live in your computer rather than sharing an office with you. So when you know what type of people you need to hire, it becomes a little bit easier. So we're now a team of 9 people across multiple jurisdictions. And I can proudly say that we haven't lost anybody. We're just adding people on the team. So it's working pretty well.
Yeah, it's really good. You made a really interesting point. It's not for everyone. Different people are set up for different things. And I've got I would say my team is semi-remote now. Half of them are remote and half of them are in Amsterdam because originally we were an in-office-based company. When people that are remote struggle with anything, I normally put the blame on myself. I have not set up the processes. I have not set up things well enough for them to actually thrive in this environment. And because if they have got the traits that you mentioned, they are self-starters, they're committed, they're okay working on their own, and something's still not going right, I tend to look inwards, then how have I got these people set up,
Well, so, again, being an over 50 guy and being a manager for like more than 20 years, I saw the change, how I perceive the managing position.
Yeah.
And while being a manager in your 30s means that you boss people around, being a manager is in your 50s is how can I facilitate my team to actually get results? So I'm saying the same thing that you said. It's, if something is not working, I start from myself. Am I making myself clear? Am I giving all the right instructions? How can I actually help you to understand? And if we don't understand it, we need to, we need to retrain. We need to spend more time. So yeah, I would agree with you. It's all about it. And we have technology today that we didn't have 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
100%. Yeah. There's a lot of different tools and tech you can use in regards to recording things and, transcribing things that people can use. Yeah, I agree. Keeping on the international theme a little bit, how do you find transacting with, IPPs based out of different countries and the cultures that might come with that?
That's very interesting. So you would have a lot of punctuality in the north of Europe, a little bit more loose in the south of Europe, without naming the countries.
Yeah.
But in general, look, IPPs, they are cross-jurisdiction projects. So I would say it's almost the same. Developers might be a little bit different. There are cultural differences. You would speak differently with a developer in Athens or in Crete than with a developer in Hanover or in Wrocław in Poland, because there is a cultural difference. But in general, the renewable industry, the common denominator is that everybody speaks English. Everybody needs to be international. So I wouldn't say that there are many differences.
Yeah, good. You make a good point. Yeah, a lot of the IPPs are international based anyway. In terms of like countries, you've got quite a wide spread. You mentioned, I think, Poland, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, etc. What are the hottest markets right now? Where are you focusing the most on?
So as in telecommunications, in renewables as well, Italy is the El Dorado. It's the hottest market that actually has overheated a lot, meaning the prices of land have skyrocketed, even agricultural land. I think the reason being that many developers have run to secure land in 2022, 2023 by offering prices to landowners that are way over acceptable margins. And then, you're a farmer, the next door farmer got a 5,000 euro per hectare lease, preliminary lease, because that's the problem. You have a preliminary lease agreement, which means that by the time the project gets authorized, if the lease is too high, even if the project is RTB, no one is going to invest in that project. We have many examples of RTB projects that just are not being invested in.
Yeah.
So it has really overheated in that sense that land is difficultly available and it's very, very expensive. On the other hand, exactly the opposite. You have Spain that has different issues. There is a grid connection. Well, the grid connection is a common issue. I mean, renewables are just pumping in energy. The grid is not ready. But Spain, for example, has a very low off-taker price, which is lower than 40 euro. And when the off-taker price is that low, the investor, even by bringing the project across the finish line in the authorization process, is still reluctant to continue investing because my payback time is too long.
Yeah.
So very different experiences in different markets.
Yeah, for sure. Italy's definitely enjoying its peak or whatever you want to call it at the moment. For us as well, it's probably been our biggest. Well, I think it will finish the year with being our biggest market in 2025, which is a big change to the last couple of years. What about kind of data centers and the growth of data centers? Is that something that can equally fit into your business model as well?
Absolutely. We have some data centers and that we have already bid on, but data centers have a different authorization process, different land required, different positions. Land tends to be very expensive, but then data centers are also very capital intensive. So it's always a matter of how much the land impacts your capex. So let's make an example. If you have a capex of 150 million and the land is 2, well, that's that's around that statistical mistake. So, I'd rather buy the land because I don't care. It's not depreciable, but my capex is 150 million, so I don't care. If my capex is 100 million and the land is 25, well, actually, that's a quarter of my capex. So maybe I should optimize that. Now, one of the objections, and by the way, we are doing BESS as well. We're doing BESS, we're doing wind. We're not just. I like solar because I buy big chunks of land, so my capital deployment is high, and the switch cost is as well high. You're not going anywhere. You're going to stay there for the next 30, probably even 60 years. With BESS, the lifespan of the battery is 15 to 20 years, so it's a shorter lifespan. Again, because of the grid connection, we do assume that the BESS project is going to stay there 20, even 40 years. Land is smaller. There are smaller parcels, but tends to be quite pricey. And again, it's a matter of how much the land capex impacts the overall capex. So, as you know, batteries have the capex on batteries has fallen drastically in the past 5 years. We are expecting the megawatt hour to be somewhere at 60K per megawatt hour in a year and a half. So expensive land is going to impact that capex. This is where we can help. Also, second-hand market. You want to sell your project on the second-hand market. If your second-hand buyer wants a lease, what are you going to do? You own the land, so you are selling the project, but you can't get out of the project. So you are a landlord now. I mean, financially, it's a disaster.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the second-hand market before.
So we come in as a solution at the beginning where you are asset light, you are land light, your project is capex light. If you want to divest, you can move on because you're selling an SPV with a lease, and we are the landlord behind it. And by the way, some of those projects will not reach the end of their forecasted life because statistically, there is going to be mortality. If we have a project of 20 megawatts that died in year 20, we will have to dispose of the land. The same as the IPP will have. But the difference is I'm a real estate investment company. If I have to dispose of a real estate, that's my job.
Yeah.
I take it. I won't be happy, but that's my job. I know what to do.
Yeah. Got you. As opposed to the project failing and then not knowing what to do with the land. Yeah.
No, then you're an IPP that has 20 hectares. Of agricultural land in 20 years' time. Now it's easy to buy 20 hectares. A little bit more difficult to sell them if you have to.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Well, what's next for Solar, Carlo? What are the plans in terms of expansion and things?
So we are already global, but with the focus on Europe at the moment, but we have some really interesting projects in the US and in Canada. And I think that the capital deployment that we're looking at in this industry is going to be quite high. We're talking about maybe even $500 million in the next 7 years globally. And I think that we are the real estate partner for IPPs and developers. We are the guys that just put your OPEX where it needs to be, and you don't need the real estate CAPEX.
Yeah.
So I think that the future is very bright. There is a second stage of our business that I can't actually. I would love to speak about that, but I just can't at this point.
Okay, we'll get you back on at some point in the future when you can share it openly.
Next year, it's already going to be the time, but not this year.
Good. And people can follow your work through your LinkedIn page, through Solar's LinkedIn page. We'll make sure we post kind of all of the links below in the description and things like that. Thanks for coming on, Carlo. It was a slightly different conversation to some others I had previously. I think the listener base will find it incredibly interesting, to be perfectly honest with you.
Thank you very much, Tom. I mean, I really appreciate the questions because it allowed me to actually explain something that's new. I read somewhere that when you kick off a disruptive business, if you don't feel funny when you're, evangelizing it, maybe you're already too late. And I can say that when we started in 2023, we started from Italy because I am native in Italian, although I am Croatian, but I am native in Italian for some strange reason. And I started calling the first developers. It was kind of tricky to explain the value proposition, but it lasted only 15 days until I got the wording right. And after that, we are actually getting inbound calls from IPPs to evaluate entire portfolios. So we are on the right path right now.
Yeah, I recorded a podcast. Yeah, I was just in Milan this week, and I recorded a couple of podcasts face to face. And we had in one of them we spoke a lot about generating inbound business and how it's not the only barometer of success, but when people are calling you, it means you're doing something right somewhere.
Yeah. We do attend. We're getting invited at conferences as well. I was invited to Athens to attend a panel. Had a speaking opportunity in Verona 3 weeks ago. So this gives you a little bit a bigger credibility, obviously. But then again, it's just numbers. Yeah. At the end of the day, our value proposition lands on the M&A and the CFO's desk, and it's just numbers. It's just an IRR calculation. Why is this convenient? And then on the other side, having an institutional landowner, not your emotional farmer, which, by the way, if you have 100 hectares and you have 5 farmers, you know that in the next 30 years, your number of landowners is going to exponentially increase. So when you want to repower, the question is, what is the type of conversation I'm going to have, and what is the level of sophistication of those conversations?
Really interesting. Thanks for coming on, Carlo.
Thank you.
We'll speak soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much.